you very much. It will be a second academic discussion है. युवा ने अच्छा शुरू किया जो सबको जितना भी लोग आए सबको बुला के कुछ मेंटल एक्सरसाइज हो जाए इस पे जो पॉपुलर चीज टॉपिक है ना, तो लोगों को भी कुछ कंफ्यूजन है, कुछ डाउट है, वो भी चले जाए, है ना. तो इसने एक अच्छा इनिशिएटिव लिया है. So I am extremely grateful to academics. He has formed the academics purely for academic exercises. So you will not find many students interested in the academic exercise these days in the university. क्योंकि उनको लगता है कि हम लोग ज़्यादा नया बात क्या करेंगे. Because this exercise is more meant for those who do not believe in what we stand for, or those who have been consistently contesting our position, or either contesting overtly, publicly, or simply ignoring us for a long time. Now the time has come, they cannot afford to ignore us. So we had a discussion for a long time on this, how whatever Roy said today, most of you are quite familiar with this narrative. But perhaps he was not given a chance to articulate this with his sense of argument, logic before. So there's a kind of untouchability in practice for a long time. So this untouchability or ignoring this new narrative or different kind of narrative line of argument to be articulated in the academic space was deliberate, so that either all of us were led to believe that whatever we are taught was the ultimate. So all kind of contestation could take place within the parameters laid down, as I mentioned before, by their narratives, by their discourse. Nothing exists outside, or simply, intention was to keep us in dark, not to know about the different discourse and narrative as such. The result is there is always a confusion, number one. Number two, there is a scope for misinterpretation of the facts, historical facts. Not only misinterpretation, even invention of certain facts which never existed. Now unfortunately this has become a part of the so-called post-truth phenomenon. And third is distortion of facts to justify their line of arguments. So I'm just beginning with where he left, that Dr. Roy has left. We have a different version of history, particularly Ramayana, Mahabharata. The other day I was watching the video by all this most controversial Islamic scholar Zakir Naik. And this man stands claiming himself to be a student of comparative religion, but he is not. He stands up to say Lord Krishna had nearly 1,000 wives, which is not practically possible. Practically not possible. Okay. So you can make some 50, 25 or 30, or not 1,000. It's not doable. As a male and a married person, I know. And then he started citing some source, very authentically. And the poor man who had asked the question about the existence of God before advent of Islam, or arrival of Prophet Muhammad, he was totally confused. So, and some sources he cited, I never heard of it before. So we have a different, what do you call it, writer of the text on Mahabharata, Ramayana, one Bengali version, one Odia version, one Maithili version. So which one to believe, and which one I know the Zakir Naik perhaps read it. So that's a confusion. That's one aspect. But then this reveals what? This reveals our respect for all kind of textual narrative of the mythology or whatever, the epic struggle that took place in this land. Okay. That reveals our respect, not simply tolerance. We tolerate everything. Okay, you don't agree, you want to give a different version, fine. Number two is related to this is, people say ours is a religion, as the colleague from Jamia Media said, he rightly pointed out. See, we say, oh, Hinduism is polytheistic. Rebel religion, monotheistic, one God, one book, one place of worship. You see, that's the problem. You see. If it is a polytheism, so you can pick on anything and start worshipping. Nobody will stop you. Which monotheism is all fixed, written down. You have to abide by this or you are out. As the Muslims say, you are kafir. Even some Muslims are declared kafir by them. It depends which side of the fence you are. So in Syria, in Iran, in Iraq, it's happening. Okay. So now the problem here is, I just go beyond it. It's not simply polytheism. You have plurality of gods. Somebody rightly, the day recently I heard it in London say, designated is Hinduism practices spiritual democracy. You have a plurality of gods means you can pick on any god suiting to your temperament, like in Islam. Again a point. But then all these gods represent an ideal. Okay, that's called the spirituality. Sure, thus I mentioned as a footnote before I start my lecture, take 15 minutes, not to confuse you more. Why I said it? Because that is the major point of difference. I keep telling my great liberal Marxist friends, in terms of comparison of religion, what many Hindus believe the Hinduism is religion, it is less a religion, more a culture. It's more a culture. Then underlying this culture, I tell you, you have certain characteristics, peculiarity, which are not found in other religions. That's basically you have a diverse ways, forms of worshipping gods and padhatis and system, but the belief is one. The belief is one. And this is reflected in certain festivals, I tell you. He mentioned few of them. Taking place almost the same time of the year, right from Assam, even Arunachal Pradesh, to Kerala, Pongal, for example. So related to the harvesting season, depending on the planetary system. Again a point. So this is some kind of shared belief which you cannot simply afford to ignore it. One. Number two is, unlike this Abrahamic religion, we have the presence of something called astral world, that source of spirituality, which is counterpoise to the physicality of world when you live. This is well reflected in the belief of all religions involved in this part of the world, the concept of transmigration, of the rebirth. And the concept of rebirth is alien to liberal religion. Let me put it straight. Some Muslim scholars saying, no, it is there, it's not there. Third is, religion is very, very personal. So dharma, in European sense, Western sense, is very personal between you and the supernatural plus Almighty, nothing in between. I get your point. So this is the culture which cannot be institutionalized. Okay. So as it happened in case of Islam. So that led to the concept of caliph. As it happened in Christianity, which led to the division, bifurcation of the church, bifurcation of the eschatological establishment or religious establishment between church and the state. That sort of things never happened in this part of the world because this is totally different, distinct. The problem here with our social scientists, they fail to comprehend the finer, the aspect which differentiate this religion, quote unquote, called Hinduism, from other religions. They are inclusive religion, ours is not. Very important. Hence, when you say Sanskritic nationalism, Rashtravalist, sure, Sanskritic is a concept, not simply a word. Okay, it's beyond, as we understand generic sense, the term called culture is beyond that. Okay, so is every Sanskrit word you pick up, it may sound like a word, but if you read in conjunction with the sentence where it is fixed, is located, you'll find a completion or totality of a concept. Again a point. So that's a peculiarity of the language. No wonder why people call it a Deva Bhasha. That's differently whether it was Deva Bhasha and Kisne Kaha nahi, nobody knows. But that's a peculiarity of the language. So then, when you talk about the second part of the lecture will be, why you discuss about nationalism? There are great many scholars in this country, those who participate in debate discussion everywhere. There is a need for nationalism at all. हम लोग तो nation बन ही गए. Why wrecking up the issue of nationalism? In fact, since the Nationalist Party, the party representing the ideology came to power in 2014, rather than the ruling party initiating the debate, the opponent started it. Purely anticipation, perhaps it will do something contrary to what they believe in. And the indicative of this was that episode in 2016 in jail. So those who accuse us of starting this debate on nationalism, they are factually incorrect, historically incorrect. Okay, it was started by them. Second, if you look at the international development, all of us begin to wonder, begin to marvel at the achievement of China in the last decade and a half, isn't it? But have you ever tried to understand what is the driver behind this? The Chinese prosperity, the Chinese dream. It is nationalism, nothing. It is simply nationalism, and that is well reflected in the wake of the Doklam episode that you had in India. If you go through some of these writers which appeared, which are filed, the stories filed by the Chinese scholars, or the comments by the Chinese scholars reflected the Chinese nationalism. Then, what about this trade war between US and China? It's indicative of this American nationalism. It's more than simply American reassertion, so far as hegemonic being is concerned. It's a kind of American nationalism. Look at the British exit from European Union. What does it indicate? So you have whatever you say, whatever level of economic development that you've achieved, accomplished, then nationalism remains the core, the essence of a state, of a community. You cannot simply afford to ignore it. Okay, that's one. Second is, why people normally submit of saying nothing but cultural nationalism. Okay, this is what my entire presentation will be, and I leave it for some of you, those who take interest in this concept of nationalism, to ponder and to reflect. See, generally, if you go to this literature available on nationalism, you'll find broadly three schools of thought. One is the primordialist. The primordialist school subscribe to this argument: the nations are natural. Okay, they are real. And majority of nations are based on ethnicity. It's called ethno. So you have a shared sense of belongingness. It could be language, it could be your, the cultural patrimony, or it could be shared heritage. So there is something called ethnicity. So ethnic basis of nationalism. The best example of the ethnic basis of nationalism is Germany. There is no Germany until 1869. Germans were all scattered. They become a unified nation state between 1869 and 1870. Then before that, this is called the primordialist, because based on primordial ties, ethnic bonding. Second school is known as the civic nationalism. Civic nationalism is something where the state comes first, then the state defines your national identity. What would be your identity? The best example of this is France. Okay, so France is called in the textbook as father, patrie or père, whatever in French it is. So it is the state comes first, that is the French state, then the elite will define your identity based on your constitution, where it guarantees set of rights to the people living in France, and it creates a kind of mono-ethnic kind of state. All the people living in France have to learn one language, French language. The result was you had problem between France and Corsica Island, where Napoleon Bonaparte was born, until the mid-1980s. The Corsicans refused to accept the French nationalism. So basically it's called the civic nationalism. Third is, which is quite popular among the contemporary intellectuals, particularly CHS and CPS in JNU and Delhi University, is called the nations are, they call the discourse nationalism. Okay, nations are not real or natural. They are discursively constructed. Nations are what a discourse, what is said about it, what is written about it. So it's a product of the dominant discourse. Nations doesn't have a fixed goal. It changes depending on the context, depending on the interaction the people have with. It's called intersubjective. Okay. So the discursive construction, implying that since nations are discursively constructed, since they are not permanent, they are not natural, they are not real, so the nations can also dissolve, they can also disappear, they can disintegrate. Okay, some other nation will come. So because it's a product of what you say, what is said about it, was written about it. Okay, so discourse creates a nation, nothing called a nation as such. So there are three kind of broad schools. And when you put the variant, what is called cultural nationalism, into the three academic categories, there is a school of thought. It doesn't fit in anywhere, except to an extent the primordial based nationalism. Right. But then what kind of nationalism we have in India? Forget for a moment all the articles which you have compiled in the book based on the lecture, which is published in 2017. It's quite confusing. I think most of the guys who deliver lectures, either they knew what nationalism was, deliberately they avoided. They came out with on funda. Somebody talks of economic nationalism, somebody talks of this and that, federalism. There is hardly mention of nationalism. It is really confusing. Somebody talks about Dalit, somebody talks about tribal, somebody talks something. There is hardly discussion of what nation and nationalism is. So, because I've gone through it, my limited knowledge, I did not comprehend exactly what I'm trying to say, what is the point of argument which need to be countered, which need to be contested. I found most of the fiction, including this article written in Hindi by that fellow who has become the director of the Institute at Allahabad University, Badrinaranji, is simply fiction. Okay, most of fiction, absolute fiction, incorrect, all invented things, and also fully confusing. Now, what we have here is, remember, we have a nationalism in India closer to the French variety. यहाँ पे problem शुरू होता है. That is civic nationalism. Every time you have some dispute, people immediately refer to the constitution. ये कहा है, ये नहीं कहा. So your identity is derived from the constitution. What you are? What you are? You are an Indian. What you are an Indian is called the civic nationalism, citizen-based nationalism. So you are, which I call mechanical, not mechanistic. It's not contrary to organic relations. कि मेरे से कुछ दिया गया है, I'm guaranteed set of rights, and I'm not conscious of my duties. Typical JNU students. We are all very free to enjoy your rights. You are simply not interested to know what my duties are to the nation, to the state. पोस्टर फड़ाना है, सर दीवार में खत्म कर दो, ठीक है, गंदा हो जाए. कि मेरा राइट है कि पानी चल रहा है उसको बंद करें, मेरे ड्यूटी. आई एम नॉट कंसर्न. आई हैव नॉट बीन टॉट दैट वे. आई हैव बीन टॉट अबाउट माय राइट्स फ्रॉम Gandhi family, which is identified in Indian state. समझो. So basically here the concept of nationalism in Indian practice largely, I tell you, fits into the French variety of civic nationalism. Because the civic nationalism has been the dominant discourse, anything that you say, articulate, or represent, which is somehow closer to the cultural variety, is not acceptable to the mainstream intelligentsia, to our establishment, which includes bureaucracy and judiciary. So that is where we run into problem. Because their ultimate thing is source is constitution. I get a point. And on that basis, so there is nothing wrong, it's fine. Because most of the, almost all the post-colonial states, almost all the post-colonial states have the identical historical experience in the course of the anti-colonial movement. Okay. Whether it is in Iran and Algeria, so not Iran is a colonized state, but whether it's Arab countries, say Egypt or Algeria, Tunisia or Iran, anywhere. If you go, you'll see, or even for the matter Turkey in the course of the war of independence, religion was used. Remember, religion was used as an instrument to mobilize masses. So religion, therefore, we did the same thing in India. The Ganesh Puja, okay, for example, which offered a common platform. We did it. But the Khilafat movement also had an instrumental function in the course of our anti-colonial struggle. So religion was used fundamentally to rally the masses. The masses, very few were educated that time to understand what nationalism is. So unlettered masses could be mobilized only through what they easily can identify. That are basically religious jargons, religious idioms, religious images. It was relatively easy for the freedom fighters to invoke religion, invoke certain sacred or the religion associated events in history to mobilize masses. So it had an instrumental function. Once independence achieved, you will find religion was pushed under the carpet. The post-independence elite define your identity purely, I am saying, purely in secular terminology. Because most of them happen to be product of the Western education system. I get it? So they projected nationalism as a secular ideology. That's true theoretically. In the course of our anti-colonial movement, our nationalism had a different objective and function. It is called the state making. Once independence achieved, the ideology had a different function. It's called the nation shaping. Nationalism, in our case, two objectives. In the course of anti-colonial movement, it was meant to create a state. After the state is created, it is meant to shape up the nation. So, nationalism has two in function in case of the post-colonial state. So, Indian elite opted for a new kind of the civic nationalism, as it happened in most of the post-colonial states. Now the question comes, once you adopt as the foundational ideology of the post-independent India, then it was imperative for the state, that's what I'm saying, mark my word, suno. तब जाके theoretical समझ में आए. It was imperative, is a compulsion, because that secularism constituted one of the major components of the ideological basis of post-independence India. So once you made it your foundation ideology, that India is a secular nation. So accordingly, you have to also develop a narrative. Again, upon the narrative. Where will the narrative come? The narrative would be constructed by your state-sponsored intellectual, including historians like late Vipanchandra. So they were the ones who would be encouraged to write history in accordance with the state ideology, because that ideology became the source of your legitimator or legitimizer. Right? So that is the way the entire narrative was constructed, weaved, to justify the post-independent ideology. Right? That's the way it happened. The result is, all of the things, whatever articulated here, were considered as anti-national, divisive, communal, blah, blah, blah. So that's what happened. When you talk about the cultural nationalism, it represents a different idea of India. To begin with, I'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. One is, it is more than simply idea of India, it's an idea of Bharata. Bharat is a more meaningful term than India. India is a meaningless term, which is thrust on us. We didn't oppose this terminological India, we accepted it. It has no meaning. Bharata is extremely meaningful, which is closer to the knowledge society. Second is, it talks about the cultural connectedness. Okay. What is it? Is a basically our imagination of India. We didn't say that India as a nation came to exist in 1947. An Indian state came to exist in 1947. That doesn't mean the Bharat as an idea was not in existence before it was. It is well reflected in our ancient scripture. You take up the Rig Veda onwards to Mahabharata, including the name Bharat. People say the name of the land was given after the name of the king. No, it's the other way around. The name was given to the king based on the name of the land. हमारा होता है ना कि पहले देखते किसका देह तो फिर नाम रखते हैं, नहीं पर नाम से नहीं जमीन बनती, जमीन का नाम नहीं बनता है, उल्टा है. So because already there's something called Bharat, so the king name was Bharat. Third aspect is, remember, the imagination was there. Imagining Bharat was reflected in Mahakavi Kalidas, Ode to Mega, the clouds. You do the description and the geographical limits of Bharat, from the south of India to Kashmir. Okay. Then is reflected in one or two instances mentioned there. The names that were given, Ram, Hari, Krishna, quite popular from north to south. कहाँ पे काम होगा? So what I'm saying, basically we are highlighting the sharedness from north to south, okay, which defines defines and delineates both the geocultural territory of the land called Bharat, right from Kerala to North India. Okay. But that doesn't mean that there is an attempt to impose this idea on others. One, no. Instead, it is an idea which is shared by the Indians living whichever part of the country that's outside. One. Number two, it's also based on not tolerating, respecting others' custom, tradition, and religious and social practices. Okay. Instead, the whole ideology aims at serving as an emotive connection, emotive connect. Finally, this nationalism, how I'm saying emotive connect, which is very, very important, is basically is stepping up the organic link between the people of India and Bharat, or the land called Bharat. So if that emotion connection is established, I think you will not be behaving mechanically as the Americans do it, the French do it. You always feel that you have a responsibility, a commitment to this land, Jameen. I get it? So the purpose and the function of the cultural nationalism, briefly to put it this way, is not to alienate any section society, but to reinforce everybody's faith, respect them, respect based on diversity. Second, to reconnect each of us to the land which is described as a Deva Bhumi. Then from this will flow your commitment to the land, your responsibility to the land, not simply to, what I call, shrugging off your responsibility and tossing it on to, because this is used to one particular ruling family, like Gandhi family, or somebody in Lucknow or in West Bengal, it's not. Because that's the way you're used to. Because all of us, we had a ghettoized mindset. We live for a particular community, small clan. We don't think of larger, like the larger canvas. That I have certain commitment. I have certain duty to fulfill. I have certain things to do before I leave this world. Nothing of that sort. The purpose of this ideology is to bring that into your mind. Create an image in your mind that you all of you should feel proud of your historical past, what we are and what we lost of it. Finally, when you look at this, the the days ahead, what we have to do. We have reached a stage, unfortunately, we have to deal with the multiple challenges. Economic, one. Social, two, in the name of social justice. Yes, we have certain amount of injustice perpetrated to certain sections of society. We cannot deny, we cannot afford to ignore it. If you are aiming at a cohesive state or nation to which each section would feel strongly part of it. And third, the international pressure. Three things, remember. One, economic. Second, social. And third, the global or the international. Three things are the three major challenges to the nation building process in the days ahead. This economic inequality, regardless of whatever model that you choose, whatever the state capitalism or open economy, the inequality will continue, difficult to do away with it. Second is social inequality because of the institutional